You can listen to us on 94.9 FM in Dakar through our website www.wadr.org. WADR, promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Freetown, 1 p.m. in Port Novo. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and across the world on wadr.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. Grief grips the 1.4 billion Catholic community as Pope Francis dies.
Carissimi fratelli e sorelle.
Dearest brothers and sisters, it is with deep sorrow that I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father.
Residents of Benue State in north-central Nigeria mourn victims of deadly attacks in two local government areas.
We're talking about 56 lives lost just in one night. The numbers might even go up still. This is a carnage. Calling on the federal government to come to our aid and very promptly.
The United Nations Special Envoy to West Africa, Shimao, wraps up visit to Côte d'Ivoire ahead of the presidential October elections, and tension mounts in Liberia's Nimba County as constituents go to the polls to elect a new representative. Please stay tuned for details of the stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for staying with us and welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. Across the world, Christians and the 1.4 billion Catholic community are mourning the passing of Pope Francis. Leader of the Roman Catholic Church died Monday morning, according to the Vatican. He passed away at the age of 88 after recently surviving a serious complication of double pneumonia that resulted in 38-day hospital stay in Rome. Here is Cardinal Kelvin Farrell announcing the Pope's passing on the Vatican's TV channel.
Carissimi fratelli e sorelle, con profondo dolore.
Dearest brothers and sisters, it is with deep sorrow that I must announce the death of our Holy Father Francis. At 7:35 this morning, the Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. His entire life was dedicated to the service of the Lord and His Church. He taught us to live the values of the gospel with universal fidelity, courage, and love, especially in favor of the poorest and most marginalized, with immense gratitude. For his example as a true disciple of the Lord Jesus, we commend the soul of Pope Francis to the infinite merciful love of the one and true God.
All'infinito amore misericordioso de Dio uno e trino.
Pope Francis's death comes a day after he made his first prolonged public appearance on Easter Sunday and cheered thousands of worshippers who were excited to see him back on his feet. Leaders across the world are reacting to the demise of the Argentine-born pontiff. Pope Francis's death sets in motion centuries-old traditions that will culminate in the gathering of a conclave of cardinals to choose a successor. Francis, whose real name was George Bergoglio, became Pope in 2013 when his predecessor resigned. In the meantime, the day-to-day running of the tiny Vatican city-state will be handled by Camelengo, the senior cardinal currently Dublin-born Kevin Farrell. In Nigeria, the Easter celebration was marked by reactions, particularly from opposition groups, civil society, and security experts over recent killings across the country. The recent attack in Benue last Friday, when unknown gunmen in the north-central state killed nearly 60 people. This raid, which follows that in Plateau State weeks ago, indicates the fragile security situation in the region, resulting in more than 150 deaths. For many years, Benue and Plateau states have experienced a history of conflicts stemming from interethnic, religious, and communal tensions. W.E. Jasusman Omar reports.
Initial reports about the attack that occurred early Friday, suspected to be carried out by herders, suggest 27 people were killed in communities of Logo and Ukum local government areas of the state. However, Governor Hyacinth Alia, while on a visit to the affected areas over the weekend, revealed that no fewer than 56 people were killed.
So far, we're talking about 56 lives lost just in one night. Many more are surely expected because as we went there, they were asking for some protection to get back to see how they can retrieve some bodies. So the numbers might even go up still. This is a carnage. I'm calling on the federal government to come to our aid and very promptly. Something drastic, something strategic has to come to play.
Rather than celebrating Easter after the Lent period, millions across Nigeria held prayer sessions for lasting peace in the country while reflecting on these unfortunate events. Thousands of kilometers away from the country, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, in his Easter message, sympathized with families of the victims of the deadly killings, saying, "Evil shall not prevail over Nigeria." Tinubu's statement was greeted with criticism from civil society organizations and opposition figures, including former Vice President Alhaji Atiku Abubakar and Peter Obi, who argued insecurity has worsened with little effort in sight to address the crisis. The current dimension, according to experts, depicts the presence of insurgents or political dynamics. They are calling for a declaration of state of emergency in the region. It is not exactly clear who the assailants are or the motive behind the attack, but experts say the incident in Plateau and Benue State underscore a resurgence of violence. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
President John Mahama of Ghana has called on African nations to strategically realign themselves to fully harness opportunities emerging from changing global geopolitical and trade dynamics. He believes the continent must move beyond its traditional economic role and embrace a more industrial and entrepreneurial future. From Accra, Nadiri Tete reports.
Speaking at the 2025 edition of the Quill Business Forum, President Mahama said Africa had often been left behind during major global transitions from the Cold War to globalization, but now has a fresh opportunity to claim its place in the evolving global economy.
The world is changing and new opportunities are being thrown up, and we as a country must take advantage of those opportunities. From the era of the Cold War, we had the era of globalization. In all these stages, Africa continued to lose out. But I think that the opportunity is beginning to come for Africa because world geopolitics is changing. We all can take note of the trade wars that are taking place between the economically mighty countries.
The president noted that current tensions between global superpowers are causing major shifts in global production and supply chains, opening a window Africa must not miss.
Let us shake ourselves out of the mindset that we are traders, because we can be manufacturers, we can be industrialists, we can be digital entrepreneurs, we can be agribusinessmen, we can be large-scale commercial farmers, we can be anything that we want.
According to President Mahama, as the world grows more unpredictable due to political and economic disruptions, space is being created for long marginalized regions like Africa to rise. The Quill Business Forum brought together policymakers, entrepreneurs, and investors to explore strategies for sustainable growth, economic diversification, and private sector transformation across the continent. For WDR, Nadiri Tete, Accra.
Meanwhile, Accra, the Ghanaian capital, will from Tuesday, April 22 to Wednesday, April 23, 2025, host an extraordinary session of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS. The conference, which is the first since President John Mahama's return to office in January this year, seeks to address issues of regional interest, including addressing friction between Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, and the bloc. Recall, these three states officially withdrew from ECOWAS months ago and forged a closed-circuit relations known as the AES Confederation. Mahama, who has led mediation talks to all three countries and even appointed a special envoy to the region, hopes to further reduce tension between the parties as ECOWAS soon celebrates 50 years of its existence.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we're streaming live on wadr.org. In Ouagadougou, the Burkinabe capital, internal security forces regularly conduct security operations. The most crime-prone areas are targeted to combat organized crime as well as any terrorist activity. A joint national police operation to this end was conducted from March 25 to April 17, 2025. It resulted in the monitoring of more than 21,000 people, including 120 arrests. Our correspondent, Martin Kaba, followed a cordon and search team. The report is voiced by Christopher Ticho.
Ne faire usage des armes qu'en cas de légitime défense.
Final instructions from Chief Police Commander Amadou Tansambedo before the start of the operation to secure the 9th District of Ouagadougou. 120 police officers, including 30 civilian clothes, are mobilized for the occasion. The mission is to tackle crime and possible terrorist attempts.
Everything will seal off at least 4 criminal investigation zones. We are only looking for individuals suspected of committing crimes. We are checking everyone. And of course, as you know, there are individuals we are looking for. They have lists of those individuals. So this is definitely an opportunity to get our hands on these people.
After the briefing, it was time for the mission. About 10 pickup trucks left the police station in a cloud of dust. Some headed for the Camboesan neighborhood on the northern outskirts of the capital. The officers checked the identity of road users while searching the vehicles. Several areas of the 9th Administrative District were cordoned off by the unit. During this operation, launched on March 29, Adama Ouedraogo is the police warrant officer.
Arriving at the crossroads, we conducted various vehicle searches and document checks. So far, we've been able to seize 10 motorcycles that lacked documentation. We've also arrested 3 people who lacked identification.
The day's operation ended at 2 a.m. and the teams deployed on the ground returned to base. According to Commissioner Gianni Numo, overall, the hierarchy was satisfied.
Christopher Ticho voiced that report filed in by WADR's Ouagadougou correspondent Martin Kaba. And now to electoral matters. The United Nations Special Envoy to West Africa rounded off his visit to Côte d'Ivoire over the weekend. Leonardo Santos Mao, during his stay, engaged political actors. First, the Ivorian President Alassane Ouattara, whom he urged to ensure a peaceful, transparent and inclusive election in October 2025. The UN representative also met with the opposition, united under the Coalition for Peaceful Change in Côte d'Ivoire. This meeting is part of preparations for the 2025 October presidential ballot. Imoradet tells us more.
The political members of CAP Côte d'Ivoire submitted a voluminous, detailed document to Leonardo Simao outlining their concerns. They notably denounced irregularities in the electoral roll, which is expected to lead to the October 2025 presidential elections. These include voter registrations without names or dates of birth, as well as anomalies such as voters with more than 50 children. These irregularities, they believe, require thorough reform of the electoral system. CAP Côte d'Ivoire also highlighted the imbalance within the Independent Electoral Commission (CAI), stating that of the 15 members of the Central Commission, 12 are close to the ruling party RHDP. The document observed that 630 electoral commissioners are chaired by activists from the same party, stressing that the current configuration compromises the impartiality and transparency of the electoral process. For his part, Leonardo Simao reaffirmed the United Nations commitment to supporting the democratic process in Côte d'Ivoire, emphasizing that resolving electoral problems is primarily the responsibility of Ivorian political actors. The UN envoy also recommended constructive dialogue between all stakeholders to reach consensual solutions. This meeting, it must be said, marks a significant step in effort to establish a climate of trust and transparency in preparation for the upcoming elections in Côte d'Ivoire.
A report by WADR's Abidjan correspondent Marcel Ariston-Blay and voiced by Imo Edet. You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. We are live on wadr.org. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Grief grips the 1.4 billion Catholic community as Pope Francis dies. Black Eastern Nigeria, as residents of Benue State mourn victims of deadly attacks in 2 local government areas. The United Nations Special Envoy to West Africa, Shimao, wraps up visit to Côte d'Ivoire ahead of the October presidential election. Still ahead in the news, tension mounts in Liberia's Nemba County as constituents go to the polls to elect a new representative. Member countries of the Lake Chad Basin Commission embark on a regional vaccination campaign to eradicate polio. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports news. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. Let's now take you to Liberia, where tension is building in Nemba County, which is preparing for its highly anticipated by-election on Tuesday, April 22, 2025. Concerns regarding tribalism and gender bias are dominating the political landscape. The citizens of Nemba will head to the polls to select a new senator to succeed the late Prince Johnson. Johnson, a former warlord turned politician, had held the senatorial position for 18 years until his death in November 2024, aged 72. From Monrovia, Abraham Parker completes the story.
At the moment, the future of the once unified region is threatened by the sentimentalism of the Gil, Minor, and Mandingo ethnic groups, alongside a notable anti-female belief. Of the 7 candidates in the by-election, Elith Gonglowe is the only female. She is under pressure from supporters of the ruling party and its ally, the MDR, as some factions urge her to withdraw, alluding to the Senate as unfavorable for a woman. Compounding the tension, Liberia's Vice President Jeremiah Kung has campaigned in the region, advocating for a leadership model that emphasizes traditional gender roles. Many citizens, however, maintain that a candidate's qualifications and potential should be prioritized. Despite the backlash, Gonglowe has gained support from influential figures, including former Liberian President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who publicly endorsed her candidacy. Additionally, Liberia's former Vice President, Joel Howard Taylor, has voiced her backing for Gonglowe.
I appeal to all citizens of Nemba County, particularly our mothers and sisters, to stand with Madam Ware at the polls. Let us unite in support of a competent, reliable, and visionary daughter of the soil who has dedicated her life to the service of her people.
With the by-election taking place on Tuesday, citizens of Nemba are at a crossroads, facing the challenge of overcoming tribal divisions and gender biases in their quest for effective representation. For Newslink on WADR, Abraham Parker, Monrovia.
In other news, member countries of the Lake Chad Basin commenced a massive polio vaccination exercise around border communities over the weekend after the reported circulation of type 2 variant of the disease. A total number of 1.1 million frontline workers, including vaccinators, social mobilizers, and monitors from Nigeria, Niger, Cameroon, Chad, and Central African Republic CAR, are taking part in the operation. The synchronized regional vaccination campaign aimed at protecting 8.3 million under 5 children from polio. Over the past 12 months, variant poliovirus type 2 has been detected both in the environment and among affected people in Cameroon, Chad, Niger, and Nigeria. A total of 210 detections have been reported across these 4 countries, 104 resulting in paralysis. The immunization began on April 20 and runs until April 28, 2025, targeting high-risk and mobile populations in border areas where surveillance indicators have remained below target.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For today's press review, let's join WAD's Usman Omar in Abuja.
This is the press review coming to you from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. We begin the day with the Guardian newspaper, and the Guardian is leading with this story: despair in Benue, Plateau as killings hit over 284 in 3 months. And below the masthead of the Guardian newspaper, you have Arewa Consultative Forum blames Nigeria's wars on corruption, nepotism, and bad leadership. You also have the foreign story there. U.S. gives quit notice to international students with cancelled visas. Easter, Christian Association of Nigeria urges Christians to promote dialogue reconciliation. And this is on the page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. And finally, before we take leave of this paper, Nigeria needs cold chain infrastructure to curb 3.5 trillion naira post-harvest losses. And let's quickly go over to the Blueprint newspaper. And the Blueprint is also leading with this story: Easter, betrayers, politicians behind current security travels. This is according to the Christian Association of Nigeria and Arewa Consultative Forum, with 2 riders. Benue, Plateau, Borno, other killings targeted at Tinubu's administration. Arewa think tank is talking there. Declare killers terrorists. Mark tells federal government. Of course, David Mark is the former president of the Nigerian Senate. And Tinubu's appointment fair to all. This is coming from a public affairs analyst, Reno Omokri. And we now go over to Leadership newspaper that is leading with this story: Northern leaders divided over 2027 politics. This is on page 4, and it has this rider: North will define direction in 6 months. This is Northern Elders Forum. We are non-partisan. This is according to Arewa Consultative Forum. Killings plot to frustrate Tinubu's re-election. All of this is coming from Arewa Consultative Forum. And you have this one above the masthead of the Leadership newspaper that says, we differ with Bakare but respect his views. This is according to the presidency. Of course, Bakare is a clergy and a politician who, in his Easter message, of course, took very deep swipes, as it has been described, at the presidency, saying that every blame should be on the doorsteps of the president as far as the economic wars, killings, and insecurity in Nigeria are concerned. Next paper for consideration is The Matrix. And The Matrix is leading also with this political story. 2027, fresh trouble for Tinubu as North prepares to reveal position. With 3 riders. First, North will decide where it stands within the next 6 months. Ex-aide to the president is saying, Tinubu utterly incapable of tackling deepening security crisis. This is coming from Alhaji Atiku Abubakar. And Nigeria bleeding from savagery, brutality never witnessed in our history. This is coming from Reverend Father Matthew Kuka, who is the Bishop of Sokoto Archdiocese of the Catholic Church. And above the masthead, you have Cardoso woos investors, says Central Bank of Nigeria's reforms laying foundation for macroeconomic stability. And that's the much we can have on that paper. As we take a look at the Daily Trust newspaper, Nigeria descending into tyranny. This is according to Bakare, ACF, that is Arewa Consultative Forum. Kuka, others decry worsening insecurity. Tinubu determines to do more on security. This is according to the presidency. And this is the much we have for you on today's edition of the Press Review, as I hand you back to the studios.
Many thanks, Usman Umar, for the Press Review.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our guest is a Nigerian activist and public affairs analyst, Uka Crew. Crew joins us with reactions to the recent killings in Nigeria, especially in the north-central region, which have sparked heated debate around the identity of the perpetrators, the motive for such heinous acts, and essentially the failure of the security sector to protect civilians. Well, these questions await answers. Uka Crew has attributed the surge in violence across the country to the daunting security threats faced by the police force and the Nigerian army. He also did not rule out political gameplay.
Yes, there was an attack in Benue State, in a local government called Ukum, local government area of Benue State. And this has been frequent. Recently, it has been frequent. And we all know, even if anybody wants to pretend, we all know that these attacks are being carried out by terrorists and driven everybody from their household. They were carrying AK-47 on bikes. People snapped them. Pictures were circulated all on the social media. And there was no response from any of the security agencies. These guys were moving around like no man's business. People lost their lives. 59 persons lost their lives. And the governor was there for an on-site visit and condolences to the people of Ukum local government area. This crisis is not just happening in the Ukum local government area of Benin State. It's happening in other places like Otukpo, around the Zone C. It's happening around Katsina Ala, Logo local government area. And I fear to say that these guys have surrounded us. And for me, I think the Minister of Defense is not in touch with reality. He needs to be on ground. He needs to visit these places and be on touch. He's totally cut off from what is happening. And when we start complaining, the best they can do is to complain, is to say the social media is misleading the people. There is nothing like bandits. These guys are terrorists. In Plateau State, there is nothing, just the way it is in Benue State. There is nothing like farmers' crisis. We as farmers, as peasant farmers, do not look for trouble. We farm to feed the nation. The same way the Plateau people farm to feed the nation. And the Plateau people and the Benue people have lived with these people for so many donkey years. There's never been crisis. We should stop pretending and deceiving ourselves. There's an agenda towards this thing.
Security agencies have promised several times to step up measures to protect civilian population from ever again experiencing this attack, yet it happens.
The security agencies in Benue are not doing as expected as we think, because Ukum local government is a very big local government. And Fulani herdsmen are riding Okada with AK-47 for more than 24 hours, and there is no form of response from any of the military zones. Look, if we use a fighter jet from Makudi, the Dakar Air Command from Makudi to Ukum, you will get there in less than 3 minutes, even a helicopter. For how many days, weeks, people have been killed? We have a tactical air command in Makudi. You don't know what they're doing. Maybe they will tell you that you don't know anything about security, so don't talk about it. I think the security are doing nothing for the killings in these areas that are troubled.
Oka Crew is a Nigerian activist and public affairs analyst. Well, up next is the sporting world. Update from the sporting world, and I have Sankuli Janku with me in the studio. Sankuli, good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon, Abdullah Hassan. Let's go straight to business because Morocco were crowned champions of the CAF Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations for the first time in their history, defeating two-time winners Mali 4-2 on penalties following a tense goalless draw. Of course, during the course of the weekend, they become the only second country to host the AFCON 2020 and then as well as win it. Gambia was the only country who've hosted the Under-17 and won it on home soil. So now Morocco is the only other country. For Mali, well, this is their fifth final, but unfortunately they've lost it. Meanwhile, CAF has announced the dates of kickoffs as well as times of venues for the group stage and knockout of the CAF Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations, which is slated to be staged in Egypt this month as well. The 17th edition of African Flag Tribute Tournament will run from 27 April to 18 May, featuring 13 nations competing across venues in Cairo, Ismail, and the Swiss. The opening match, of course, will take place on the 27th of April when Egypt will take on Zambia. Reigning champions Senegal will begin their title defense against Central African Republic in Group C on the 2nd of May 2025 in Egypt. Hopefully Senegal will try to defend this one because they failed to defend the CAF Under-17 Africa Cup of Nations, but they have another opportunity to defend the Under-20.
Under-20.
Yes, which of course will be played in Egypt.
Well, you forgot to mention Nigeria.
Oh, yes, Nigeria also. No, you're right. Nigeria is there, and as well as Ghana, and they're one of the favorites,
exactly.
So
Ghana.
I look forward to an exciting one. This one is going to be a very
serious
exciting
upset, right? We begin to see a lot of upset in football, right?
Yes, we do, because particularly this just ended Under-17, but this Under-20, perhaps the likes of Nigeria and Ghana will reclaim, their position in youth category in the continent.
Very much, Sankuli Janko. You'll be back at 6 p.m. with more details, right?
Yes, I will be back with more details at 6 p.m.
Thank you very much, Sankuli. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek, Mam Kodu Injai Fai, and Umo Danyogo for technical support. Do interact with us via social media platforms: X, Instagram at WADR English, on Facebook, WADR English Service. Coming up at the bottom of the hour is a replay of our flagship health program, Well Body, with a more edit to be followed by the second edition of our comprehensive news package in French, Info Chez Vous, with Alpha Abubakar. I'm Abdullah Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to Newslink via Hot 104.3 FM, Newmi FM 94.0,
Hilltop Radio 104.7 FM,
and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County,
Radio Kagama 94.5 FM, Nibe County, DCN Radio 91.3 FM, Riverside County, Wakat FM Radio, Banga, Liberia, Radio Baf FM 91.3 Sierra Leone.
For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7
You can listen to us